Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry we're a couple of minutes late. Technical issues. Apparently, it's the internet's fault. It's nobody else's fault. It's the internet's fault. Anyway, welcome to Festival Live. Welcome to those of you now going to begin to join us for conversation together. We hope you've had a good day. Hope you engaged with Bible study this morning on Festival Live. And now we're in conversation with a whole range of guests that are on site with us, so you at home can get to know the folk who are around Festival and find a bit about their story, about what they do and why they do it. And I've got to be very careful now, because I guess technically, as a Methodist minister, the top is you, and I need to be really careful what I do, and I could be on a charge if we're not careful now. So I'm going to be really careful, Graham, okay? I won't ask you any difficult questions. I introduce you to the President and the Vice President of the Methodist Conference, Reverend Graham Thompson and Anthony Botang. Welcome to Festival Live. Just say hello to everybody for us.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm sorry that you can't be here on site where the sun is shining and the sky is blue.
Great stuff.
And hello to everyone, those who join us online, and good to be here.
Great. Thank you both. You've been here all weekend, both of you, which has been great. Just my first question is actually about Festival. How have you found Festival over the last few days? Anthony, go first.
For me, it's been great. It really has. The energy has been fantastic. The teaching, particularly from Ruth, has been amazing. Lots of insight. And most importantly, the people have been very, very nice. So it's been great all round.
I'm glad you said the people were very nice. If you had said the people were not very nice, that would have been a serious issue, wouldn't it? But the people were great. Graham, how about you?
My overwhelming reflection is that it's very different from when I was a student here 42 years ago. And the festival was kind of a run-up to the anniversary Monday, whereas this is a whole weekend of celebration, worship and teaching, and it's grown out of all proportion.
It has. It's great. And it is an amazing place to be. Just to those of you at home, you're very welcome next year to book a ticket and be on site with us. The bookings are open tomorrow for next year, so that'd be great. Do think about joining us online. So I guess, Graham and Anthony, you've been President and Vice President since last June. So you're coming towards the end of your presidential and vice presidential year in office. You kind of get a picture of the church that we don't see. Many of us are in our local churches. I guess many online here are in our local Methodist churches and kind of don't see the bigger picture. I just wondered how you feel the church is health-wise in this moment. And I know that's a really difficult question to ask because it's still in a moment of post-COVID. But from your perspective, what's the health of, and let's stick to the Methodist Church at this moment, because that's what I guess you've seen most of. What's the health of the Methodist Church? I'll go with the president, and then we'll go with the vice president.
Thank you very much. I think we have to be honest about ourselves, that actually in this post-restrictions, I don't think we're even post-COVID really. In this post-restriction period, we're still continuing to deal with the trauma that the pandemic has caused on society and on the life of the church. So it's been a very significant time, and the fallout is not yet fully known. So we are going through tough times. Our demographics are against us. Increasing demands are being placed upon us. So it seems that more and more is being demanded of fewer and fewer. However, there are real signs of hope. Some of the great programs that the conference has initiated, such as New People for New Places or New Places for New People, whichever way round you'd like it. It's been very exciting to witness some of the embryonic projects around the country, and just to see opportunities to see Methodists engaged in mission of all kinds. It's been very exciting. So, we're in a tough place, but there are signs of hope.
Yeah, and I think the church has taken some risks, hasn't it? It's invested a lot of money in the evangelism and growth strategy and the New Places for New People projects. We've committed a significant amount of money into those because we're taking the risk that these new things and these new ventures and these new opportunities are being prompted by God's Spirit, and we'll see that growth. So that's going to take time. That's not an overnight. There's no overnight fix, is there?
No, there isn't. And, with any risk-taking, which is what this is really about,
absolutely.
We accept the possibility of failure.
Absolutely.
But if there's a couple of failures and one success on which we can really build, then that's worth every penny.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement with that, Graham. Anthony, how have you found your year, and how do you see the church in this moment?
I would say the church is in a period of rebuild. That's how I would phrase it. And as Graham has said, we are trying many initiatives. The truth is still very much in the pudding, waiting to be eaten. We don't know how this is all going to play out, but I have visited some churches which are experiencing growth, and of course some churches which are stagnant and are not growing and actually declining. So that is the picture. That is the state of affair. But we trust in God, and we believe that through all of this, God is still with us.
I'm about to have one of those amazing things the Methodist Church gives its ministers called a sabbatical. One of the things I'm going to be exploring on sabbatical is one of the themes of the evangelism and growth strategy, which is that sense of every church a growing church. I actually really fundamentally believe, that every church can grow and can develop, and we shouldn't just accept where we are. And how do we do that? And each church is unique and each church is different. So I'm maybe just some thinking around that in my own sabbatical. But yes, we've got to take some risks. We've got to take risks as a church. Graham, is risk taking easy?
No, it's not. And it's actually, those who take the risks can often feel quite threatened as they do so. Particularly by those who think they know better, or the church that's investing a great deal of time and money into them. They can feel the responsibility, the onus falling on them. So no, it takes a great deal of courage to be a risk taker, and we thank God for all of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anthony, where have you seen over the year the real places of hope? Tell us a couple of places where you've seen hope in this last 12 months. A couple of stories that you can think of at the top of your head where you've come out and gone, actually, I can really see God at work in that place. Where's that?
I think, to be honest, I think everywhere I have visited, there have been indicators, signs that God is indeed at work. Being here, for example, at this festival, there are clear indicators that God is indeed at work. The theme itself suggests that God is at work and is trying to turn things, reverse our fortunes around. And we can see that through the numbers of people that have turned out. We can see that through the testimonies, conversation I've had with people. We can see that through the general demographic of people that have turned up to this festival, both older and younger. And that is a wonderful thing. This is something which I've very much been speaking a lot about, trying to lower the age profile of our church, because I think a healthy church has got to be in that kind of a place. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. Even our mission partners, I had the honor and privilege to visit Sri Lanka for Holy Week, and to see the church blossom and grow in a way which it has after the bombing that they experienced, I think 2018, to me indicates that we have done fantastic work mission-wise for all the places that we have spread the gospel. So there are clear indicators that we are doing some fantastic work, but of course there are some more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And Graham, I'm going to ask you the same question. Over this last 12 months, yes, we've talked about the difficulties and the risks and the pain and the trauma, which are all valid, and we're all in the midst of that. And I, like you, get the opportunity to visit lots of churches, and you hear the stories of it's not as it was, we're not back to where we were, the people are not here, people have died, and they're living with the trauma of that. And then people are thinking, actually, have we let the church down because we're not where we were? There's the guilt element and all of that within our local churches. But I just wondered, let's be really positive for a moment, because we could spend the time really negatively, absolutely. And I understand that, and I know for many churches that is the story they're living in. But where for you have you seen those glimpses of real hope across the connection over this last 12 months?
I would want to point to places like Susanna Wesley House in Derby, working alongside asylum seekers and refugees. It's not a big project, it's a small project, but it's having a significant impact. The development of the Walking Church in Durham, for instance, trying to develop church in a different context, but still holding true to the facets that make up worship. The Spire project in Poole, where a significant amount of money has been spent to create a community resource and as a mission outreach. Or go back to one of the age-old and long-established projects like the Whitechapel Mission in London, which does an incredible job among homeless people And in this cost of living crisis, among people who are threatened with losing their homes,
Yes.
and go to them for a meal because they can eat and pay their rent.
Yeah. Some incredible bits of work, and those stories are mirrored, aren't they, all across the connection?
All across, yeah, absolutely.
As the people of God,
Yeah.
in our case called Methodists,
Yeah.
are serving their communities, living out what it means to be faithful in what is difficult for all of us times. There's a good number of folk online listening to this conversation. I've just gone onto my Facebook page to see who's there, and there's loads of folk here. I just wonder whether anybody online, particularly on the Facebook page, which I'm looking at the moment, I know we're on Facebook and on YouTube, so welcome to all of you. But if you had any questions of the President or the Vice President at this moment, anything you would want to ask, just pop it onto the chat and we'll ask it in just a moment. We've only got a couple more minutes with the President and Vice President, but if you have something you really want to ask them while we've just got them sat here and they can't run away and there's a microphone in their hand, this is your moment to ask the question, because we're up close and personal with them both, and you can ask them anything, anything at all. But the question I want to ask you, this is the dream question, is, with some honesty, if you feel able to do it, where do you see the Methodist Church in 5 years' time? We live in 5-year appointments, don't we, often? As Methodist ministers, we think in 5-year blocks. 5 years' time, I'm going to start with you, Graham, and then I'll come to Anthony. Where do you see the church in 5 years?
I think, as somebody who passionately believes in death and resurrection, as I hope every Christian does, I think we've got to experience quite a lot more death in the life of the Methodist Church before we will experience the resurrection. So I think there's a lot of pain to come and difficulty.
Can I ask you, I'm going to push you just a little bit.
Go on, yeah.
Because I agree with the statement.
Yeah.
But I just wonder whether you can put any flesh on the bones of the statement of what you think you mean by that.
I think a lot of our churches are going to close.
Okay.
I think a large proportion of our membership are either going to leave or die. I mean, that's what the statistics would tell us.
Yeah.
We've got to become a much smaller and therefore a leaner Methodist church. I also think that we need to play a much more significant role in the ecumenical scene, because I believe that Methodism, as distinct from the Methodist Church, has got a lot to offer ecumenically, and I think that's where our future will eventually lie.
We have a voice, and it's an important voice. Absolutely. And whatever happens to an institution or denominational structure, the voice needs to be heard beyond it, and so we need to make sure we're speaking clearly, with a Wesleyan voice, talking of holiness and justice and how they go together, and evangelism and how it all weaves in. Absolutely. Thanks, Graham. That's really helpful, and thank you for being honest. Anthony, I'm going to ask you the same question. Where do you see the church in 5 years?
I think if I can offer any prophecy, what I will prophesize is that one thing is going to happen. The church is going to become a lot more diverse. You're going to see a lot more rise, and particularly with the cultural fellowship, they are going to step more into the leadership position, and they're going to help to somehow for the church to be rebuilt, renewed, and revived. That, I think, is going to be a crucial thing that's going to be happening over the next 5 years. Second thing is going to happen, and I hope that sincerely that's come to pass, we will develop new form of leadership, which will be more dynamic leadership, honest, integrity, and will not try to almost create the narrative at all times. I think that's one of the things that would also happen. The third one, I think I need to maybe pray a bit more on to get a bit more discernment. But I think the landscape is clearly changing a vast amount. And I think the other indicator that I'm getting is that there will be there's going to be more ecumenical work. I don't know whether our conversation with Church of England is going to come into fruition, but I suspect it will. And how we do ministry, we will see maybe more LEP type of churches being formed, and perhaps ministers being shared across the two denominations. Those are the three indicators that I'm seeing within the next 5 years.
Deacon Al online hasn't asked a question but made a statement, so I'll just share it. Yeah. And it's one we've heard numerous times, but we actually need to step into. It's that kind of, we need to go back to being a movement, not a church. Kind of breaking down some of those boundaries of institution that may often feel like they're restrictive to being the movement that God intends us to be, with the prophetic voice that the Methodist people can bring to the table. Graham, Anthony, thank you for sharing some time with us. One final question. Between now and conference, what's your hope? You've got a few weeks.
Just to get to the conference alive and well, and to be able to hand over well to our successors, Jill and Kerry, who we pray for every day.
Great,
absolutely.
Thank you,
and thank you both.
Thank you
for your time with us at Festival. Thank you for the last 12 months and what you brought to the life of the church. Thank you for being yourselves, and thank you for being open and honest with us this afternoon in conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We're going to go to a sting, which will be back in about 30 seconds. Okay, welcome back. We've shifted around stools. We've said goodbye to the President and the Vice President. We are Festival Live. We're meeting in the Market Hub, or Market Village, or Marketplace of Festival. So there's a bit of a hubbub around us as people have conversation and talk about ministries and projects and serve coffee, very important. I'm hoping in about 5 minutes' time someone's going to pop a coffee in my hand, which is going to be great. No, I've booked this one, Tim. So it's not the ice cream moment of yesterday. And nobody bought me a Mercedes-Benz, so they'll be generous with an ice cream. But I'm still waiting for the rest. Tim, welcome to Festival Live. You're a face that's been seen around Festival for a number of years. Before we get into what you do, who is Tim Baker? Tell me about Tim. What's Tim do? What's Tim's family like? What's life for you like?
Thanks, Ash. So, I'm Tim. I live in West Yorkshire, a lovely little place called Pontefract, just south of Leeds, with my long-suffering wife, Hannah, and our rather miraculous 5-year-old daughter called Martha, who is 5 going on 16. Hi, Martha, if you're watching.
Why Martha, I need to ask a question now. Why are you miraculous?
Aren't all 5-year-olds? I
use other words.
Yeah, so do I sometimes.
Martha,
today we're going for miraculous.
You're obviously being a good girl and you are miraculous. That's great.
Absolutely.
Carry on.
And I guess kind of my passion is to see God at work in people's lives, inside and outside the church. And I've been able to do that through lots of different things I've done in my life, including my work, but also outside of that. And that's why I love coming to Cliff Fest, because you just have conversations with people all over the place about what God's up to and kind of how we need to get out of the way and let that happen.
You're here today not just as Tim Baker, but you're here as Tim Baker, clearly, and it's great to hear about you and family. But you're here because you're one of the key partners of Cliff Fest, one of the partners who's invested in the life of Festival over recent years, and we hope we've invested also into the work of All We Can as a key partner in the life of Festival over the years. Just talk us through, for those that, and I hope nobody online has not heard of All We Can, and if they've ever engaged with Festival, I don't know how they've missed it. But just tell us a little bit about the work of All We Can and what its ministry is all about.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. So All We Can is the international development agency of the Methodist family. We've been part of the Methodist Church family for 80-something years under various guises. And what we do is work on behalf of the family of the people called Methodists here in the UK to help serve those most in need around the world. We have this tagline that we like to talk about, every person's potential fulfilled, which I think is God's heart for the world, a world in which there isn't any poverty, where it doesn't matter where you were born, where it doesn't matter if there's been a war or an earthquake or some other humanitarian crisis where you live. Actually, you deserve to have your potential fulfilled. That's what I think God wants for us. And so the part All We Can plays is just saying, okay, how can we make that possible? How can we remove some of those barriers and boundaries that we know exist in our world and enable everybody to flourish?
So here's my pushback. We can't fix everything, Tim.
No.
We can't solve every problem. We can't alleviate everybody's poverty. So what's the point of All We Can?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, isn't it? And I think it cuts right to the heart of why do we do anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we two things, I think, to say to that. Firstly, we may not be able to help everyone, but if we can help one person, then that's worth doing. We talk a lot about the famous quote that Wesley has about do all the good you can, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And often, sometimes, perhaps resisting the all bit of that, even though we've put that in our name. Yes, do all the good you can, but actually do all the good you can.
Yeah.
The bit that you're called into, and we recognise that the bit we're called into is a particular kind of international development work in the places where we have long-standing partnerships, in the communities where we know we can make an impact, those places. But the second thing is, just to kind of pick up on your question, it's not about us either. I think that's the thing. We don't have to fix it. We have to enable people to fix their own challenges and issues, and that's the great joy of the way All We Can works, through what we call our partnership model. That's why we like to be called partners when you introduce us here at Festival Live, because we really believe in partnership, which isn't about, oh, let me solve the world's problems. It's about, let me see if the resources I have could enable somebody to solve their own problems. And it's about changing that whole mindset of, oh, we've fixed everything, we've got everything right, let's export that around the world. You only have to look at our own country, don't you, the communities we're in, even these beautiful places around here in Derbyshire, to know we haven't got everything right. Yeah. We need to learn and listen and be alongside as well.
No, that's really important, and I just want to take a moment to honour the work of All We Can, and I know we've done that in so many ways at Festival, and we are really proud to partner with All We Can. It's really important for us as we can spend our time in a field in the middle of Derbyshire and get so insular and think this Jesus thing is all about just me and Jesus. And yes, it is about me and Jesus, and it is about me being reconciled with God, and that's part of our language this week, but it's also about me and the world.
Yeah.
And it's about God and the world, and it's about this broken world.
And Eden isn't restored until it's restored for everybody. Eden is not restored
until it's restored for every human life and soul. Yeah. And you're right, we can only do that maybe for one at a time, but it's good for that one.
Absolutely.
It's good for the one. Just tell us a little bit about the projects you're currently involved in. Where are you currently? I know you're working in lots of places, but let's just talk about a couple of the priority projects for you at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We this year running a campaign called Communities in the Driving Seat, which is all about some of the work that's happening in Malawi. Got an amazing partner in Malawi, an organisation called Eagles, who's led by an amazing man called Victor, who regularly talks about the fact that he's got lots of qualifications in theology and in international development and in community empowerment and all that sort of stuff, but the people he serves have got PhDs in their local community. So his whole mantra is about how do we put the communities that we're working with in Malawi in the driving seat of their change. So here at Festival we've had a tandem bike going all weekend. I haven't seen you on it yet, Ash, but there's still time.
Actually, I have been on it.
Oh, did you sneak on at midnight?
If you're in the celebration later this evening, if you can watch it online, there will be evidence.
Oh, excellent.
Evidence that I have sat on the bike.
Okay, good.
I use the words very carefully that I just used. I have sat on the bike. There is evidence this tonight.
Good. And the whole point of the tandem is that invitation to think about, I think often when it comes to poverty, when it comes to Africa, when it comes to thinking about the places where we know there is lots of need, our temptation is to say, let me fix it. Let me jump on the driving seat. Let me tell you what to do. Let me take control. Let me tell you exactly where I want you to spend the £8 I've just given you. And actually we're saying, let's try and resist that temptation. Let's get on the back. Yes, we know we've got resources that we need to put to use to tackle poverty, but actually we need to enable the people who understand their communities, know their own context, to lead and to be on the front seat.
And I'm really proud. I'll be really open and say I'm a financial supporter of All We Can.
Grateful. Thank you.
No, it's a real passion for us to make sure that the resources that we have as a family are invested well, and we know that as we give money to All We Can, it's being used wisely. I get the privilege of seeing some of the evidence of that work in different places around the world. I've not travelled with you, but been to a couple of your projects in a number of locations, which is just really exciting to see. What would you want to say to the guys this afternoon? We've got 20-odd people gathered online. What would you want to say to them? How can we get involved? How would you want folk to respond to the kind of things you're talking about?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You can support us. We need the money to be able to do that work, which helps to change the way we think about poverty. The fact that lots of people up and down the country give us a few quid a month and say, do what you think you need to do with that, is what enables us to have that whole model of supporting communities to do their own thing. So it's not that people, we don't have to go to the government and ask for a grant that would come with a load of strings attached and limitations on how people could spend it, because we've got generous supporters like you guys at home. So thank you if that's you. And you can nip to the website, allwecan.org.uk, find out how to support us, sign up as a regular giver. But I would perhaps suggest even more important than that is we would really encourage you to have some of those conversations about what does it look like when we do justice around the world. How are we getting out of the driving seat? How are we letting go control? So we've got a couple of resources here at Festival, but there are also resources folks can access online. I'm holding a copy of our Be Transformed devotional booklet, which is 6 weeks. You can do it on your own, or even better in a small group, kind of studying some of those questions. You'll hear the stories from Malawi, but you'll also hear stories and invitations for you and your church to think about how are you kind of interacting with the communities around you. And then it'll soon be harvest season, and many long-standing All We Can supporters will know we've been producing harvest resources for longer than I've been alive, actually, as far as I'm aware.
That's a long time.
It's a really long time. It's getting longer every year.
Oh, I know.
And
you're not going grey though yet.
Oh, it's starting. And you can order those again at the website allwecan.org.uk/harvest. Get your pre-orders in, and we really want churches to be having that conversation about when we do this international development work, or indeed when we do anything about poverty, justice, even our evangelism work. Is it us that's trying to take control, or are we taking a back seat, letting God do the driving, letting the local people do the driving?
Yeah, that's great. Tim, thank you. I've just, Sandra, one of our lecturers who lives in New Jersey, has asked me the question of have I pedalled? She clearly understood my statement. I'd sat on the bike. Sandra, I would like to be honest with you. I'd like to be honest with you, so I'm just going to refuse to answer the question right now. But I promise I will pedal before the end of Festival.
There you go.
On the tandem. I just need to find somebody to get on the bike with me. That's the issue.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. But what's going to happen in a minute, and the President and the Vice President don't know this yet, but what's going to happen in a minute is the President and the Vice President, Tim's going to grab them the minute he leaves this hot seat, are going to get on the bike, on the tandem, and we are going to show you at home the President and the Vice President. He's behind, he's there. Don't worry, I can see both of them. We're going to get them on the tandem, and we're going to show you the President. They're going to cycle all the way to Malawi on their own. We're going to set them off, and they're going to reach Malawi. So I'm going to say goodbye to Tim, and in a minute, Tim, just remind us again of the website.
allwecan.org.uk. See you there.
I've also had a message from Lorraine Meller. Lorraine
Lorraine.
have been on site with us. Lorraine, continued prayers for you and the family. Sad you're not here, but glad you're watching Festival live. Lorraine says, great work, thrilled to be associated with All We Can. We are passionately glad about being part of the life of All We Can at Festival. So we look forward to our continued relationships together. And what you can't see at home is a President and Vice President desperately trying on stepladders to get onto it. Can I just say the President got on more easily than the Vice President did?
Those trousers, Anthony, they're something else.
You see, they are classics. In a minute, just hold on. We're going to go to the Sting, which just gives us a chance to move around, get our next guest on the hot seat. But we're going to, in a minute, when we come back, we'll show you the President and the Vice President. Oh, you're on there. You've got the camera. Hold on. Let's go to the Sting. Let's swap around, and then we'll show them the President and the Vice President. Go for it. Who have I got now? Okay, bring us back, Luke. I think we're back on air, so welcome back. Hold on. Are you now ready? This is the moment of truth. We're going to turn this camera around and reveal, here we are, the President, they're cycling. They don't seem to be going very far, to be fair. This is a moment where they have to see if they can get top speeds. Of how many miles are they supposed to do, Tim? How are they doing? What are they on?
14. Yes, all right.
What's the top score?
46.
They're on 14 miles an hour. The top score's 46 miles an hour. Come on. We're going to just give you a minute. Come on. Go, go, go. Give them a round of applause, everybody. Come on. In the marketplace. Give them a round of applause. We'll let you stop. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Festival Live. I'm joined by Mandy. Mandy, just say hello and just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, Ash. I'm very honored to be here, and it's an amazing opportunity. I am a mother, a wife, a grandmother. God is my hero. He's probably the first person I have a conversation with each day.
That's great.
And professionally, I'm a social worker, psychologist, eco-psychologist, an author to be soon. And I'm a keynote speaker linked with the Professional Speakers Association of the UK.
An eco-psychologist.
That's it.
What?
That's my passion.
What is an eco-psychologist? Tell us about that.
Okay, so my way of being an eco-psychologist is to take people on wilderness encounters.
Okay.
To observe animals with social behavior, swim with dolphins, talk with the Maasai or the Bushmen, to gain personal or professional life-changing insights.
Wow. And who do you take on those kind of trips?
It varies. The more discerning tourists, sometimes groups of retiring businessmen and sports people who thinking, they've been the head of their careers and they're thinking, now what? So that they can negotiate. They're still great influencers. So it's just a time of life to think, well, how do we rearrange our lives now and continue to influence and make an impact? So nature's a great place to get to know yourself. It's a great leveler. You experience God's love unconditionally, and it's a great place it's a restoration Eden place to gain emotional, physical, spiritual wisdom.
So, how do you start that journey? How does Mandy become an eco-psychologist? What leads you on that journey? How did that journey start?
My journey started when I went through my own divorce, and I realized that I needed to go back to where I had a sense of belonging, which was in nature. As a young toddler, we used to live in Zambia, and we used to live on the edge of Kafue River. So I used to play down in the river with all my little friends, and nature was always a nurturing place for me. I always used to find the birds singing and the bees buzzing, and just being in nature was very healing. And I needed to go back into that place to gain my own emotional healing, but also to gain clarity of how my life was going to evolve after that. So that was the starting point for me. And then each animal species I was drawn to observe was showing me something that needed to be shifted or changed or matured or healed in my life. So for example, if I started with the wild dogs, or African painted dogs, as I prefer to call them.
Yep.
And early man and early wild dogs wouldn't have survived if they didn't nurture kinship bonds. And I realized that in my own family, I didn't have those kinds of close connections always, and that was what was missing in my life. So they revealed to me where to go to find what I needed to make my life more promising, fulfill my potential. And so I needed to find groups where I felt a sense of belonging. I needed to be community, and that became very important guidelines for me from that particular species.
Amazing. So how do you end up here in the UK? How does that journey go for you?
Well, we had to decide where we were going to put down roots and retire, and all our children and grandchildren are here in the UK.
Okay.
So recently I've realized I can do wilderness encounters in the UK as well, elephants and that kind of thing. But they're amazing lessons you can learn from nature, from plants. So that will be my new way of doing wilderness encounters in the UK. As well as I've bought a piece of land in Tidesville. So it'll be a place where we'll have a foraging route, where we'll have a sensory garden for people who are struggling with autism challenges and learning disabilities, and rewilding the land and horticultural therapy, and all sorts of amazing things.
That sounds amazing. So just down the road from us here at Cliff, you bought some land. When do you think that project will come to fruition?
I think we'll start in September.
Okay, so how do people find out about that, Mandy?
Probably the best way at this point in time is to go to my website, which
Okay.
is wildernessencountersafrica.com.
wildernessencountersafrica.com. When you finish this conversation in a few minutes' time, or at the end of Festival Live in a minute, just go to that website and have a look and find out all that's going on. And when you kind of look at the communities in which you find yourself now, what do you think are the key challenges that people are facing, and why your kind of ministry is going to be so powerful to begin to meet people's needs?
Well, one of the things that wild animals and tribal people have shown me is that good mental health and environmental sustainability, or healing yourself and healing the world, are really important, are very, very much go hand in hand. So one of the reasons I'm here at this particular conference is because I'm very closely connected with the Maasai group, and I've been closely connected with them for 7 years now. And sadly, over the last 5 years, I've started to see the impact of climate change in their lives.
Yes.
So there's been longer and longer droughts and less rain, and the rains have been delayed. So whereas they lived very interdependently with nature and with each other, they now, as pastoralists and a huge abundance provision from the land, they now, with my encouragement, in a way of trying to support themselves, having to learn to be agriculturalists. So we're growing, I've asked them to, I'm not a farmer, so this was all a bit naive, but it worked.
Yeah.
Dig deep trenches, fill it with elephant dung, and grow sweet sorghum, which is a great food source for them, for their cattle, and there's a substance you can get from the sweetness of the leaves for their immune system. So I learn a lot about being community from the Maasai.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Mandy, if there was one thing, because of course you've talked a lot about how we can begin to look at the ecosystems and how that can have impact. If there was one thing you'd encourage all of us to think about within our own life journey, about how we might make change or bring transformation to us or the communities in which we find ourselves, would there be anything you'd recommend to us to think about?
Well, I think that when God created, He created, the first process was interdependence.
Yeah.
So He said, you take care of the earth and the earth will take care of you. And then within our own species, between husbands and wives, parents and children. But we sometimes forget about the interdependence that comes between us and other species. So to be conscious of that, and also to take the opportunity that a lot of the developed countries, the behavior and the actions that we've taken, sometimes naively, has caused a lot of climate change and problems for those with fewer resources. So a wonderful way of restoration is to give back to those people who are struggling and with the consequences of climate change. So it's a wonderful healing thing for them, but it's also a wonderful healing thing for us to contribute.
Thank you so much. And I guess this sense of Eden restored. Eden's not restored until the whole of creation is restored.
Yes.
And that's what we're working towards. That's the dream. That's the hope.
Yes.
So thank you just for spending time with us, Mandy. Pray God's blessing on you and the ministry. And do make sure you make your way to wildernessencountersafrica.org.
.com.
Sorry. Wilderness Encounter. I knew I was going to get that wrong. I should have had it written down. wildernessencountersafrica.com. And take a look at that. And if you wanted to know more, I'm sure you can contact Mandy from that website.
Yes.
Mandy, enjoy the rest of festival. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Okay.
Let's go to the Sting Loop. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you too. Now, what I have on my notes here,
Yeah.
it says I'm meeting Green Christian.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I'd like a name.
Colin.
Colin,
Yeah.
nice to meet you,
Yes,
Colin.
hi.
Colin, before we get into Green Christian and what that's all about, just tell us a bit about you. Where are you from? What do you do for a day job and all of those things?
Well, I'm retired, so I don't have a day
Oh,
job
okay.
exactly. Although in normal times when there aren't travel restrictions and so on, I actually work overseas in an
Okay.
aid situation. So you're doubly blessed because actually COVID has resulted in me being stuck in my home in Sheffield, just up the road.
Okay.
And therefore I can be with you. Otherwise I wouldn't even be here.
Okay,
Yes.
well, we're glad you are
Yes.
here, particularly on this particular festival where our theme is really looking at Eden Restored
Yes.
and what it means for us as followers of Jesus to be part of that restoration process.
Yeah.
Because we have responsibilities as Christian people and we don't always remember that. So we wanted to put that front and centre this particular weekend for us. Welcome to everybody who stayed with us online. Great to have you with us. We're going to have a conversation with Colin. So Colin, just Green Christian, just tell me what that's all about.
Well, as the name implies, it's about Christians being green.
Yes, it's in the name.
Yeah, what it is a British charity, but really run entirely by volunteers. It's not a professional organisation in that sense. And the idea is to be a network, or perhaps more than that, to be a kind of community, both online and actually in person, in the room meetings, where we support each other in our each in our individual journeys as Christians to live up to our ecological and climate responsibilities. Yeah.
And practically, I get the being in the room to encourage each other. Practically,
Yes.
for you, what does it mean for us as followers of Jesus to be Christians who seek to be green?
Well, it means lots of things.
Okay.
It means a whole combination of, in a sense, the whole of life. So it's about spirituality, theology, when we have materials and teaching materials around that, and a practice of prayer and personal discipline, which can be quite disciplined as a way of life, an actual kind of rule of life, or a little bit more informal. And also it's very much practical, everything from what you do when the gas boiler packs up on in your church or in your home, and equally what car you drive, or if you drive at all, and issues around your lifestyle and so on. Some of the things that, in fact, I think Ruth Valeria has been very good at enumerating in some of her writing, of course. Yeah.
And we've tried to, and I hope if you've engaged with us on Festival Live and listened to Bible studies and celebrations this weekend, we've tried to show that actually there is a really serious theology underpinning
Yes,
a
exactly.
green
Yes.
eco agenda for Christian people. This isn't just I think Ruth used the word woke this morning
Yeah.
in her Bible. This isn't just a
Yes.
woke agenda. This is actually God's agenda from day one, that we have responsibility
Yeah.
and we haven't always taken that seriously. And we have a prophetic voice to speak into communities and into powers and to those who make decisions.
Yeah, exactly. I think that perhaps I could say a little bit about how I actually got involved with Green
Yeah,
Christian.
that'd be great.
In fact, there's a great Methodist connection because I came to, well, I live in Sheffield, and Victoria Hall, which is the central
Yes.
Methodist church in Sheffield, hosted a Green Christian one-day conference a few years ago, which I went to, and that was specifically about the Green Christian project called Joy in Enough, which is about economics and consumerism and the culture and society that we live in, and about our individual choices and lifestyles. And so I went along because I was very involved in, or very concerned about ecological issues and wanting to see how to marry that with my Christian faith. Yeah. And that's a significant part of what we do. In fact, if a little bit of a commercial plug, tomorrow, you've given me the opportunity to give a seminar at 1 o'clock tomorrow, where we'll be talking about the Plenty course, which is a 6-week set of modules which discusses those issues in more detail for use in home groups and so forth.
If you're nearby, you can come and get a day ticket and come into the seminar on
Yes,
site with us.
get a day ticket,
That will be
yes.
great. If you're
Yeah.
nearby, why are you not here?
Yes.
If you're nearby, why are you not here? If you're in Cornwall, Lorraine, I understand maybe why you're not here this weekend. But if you're nearby, why are you not here? So do come and join us tomorrow if you're able to, and you can go to that seminar at 1 o'clock.
Maybe if you're within 1 hour's cycling distance, you should
Yes.
consider coming.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
But if they can't get here tomorrow
Yes.
to get to the seminar, how do they find out more about Green Christian and the work
Well,
that you
they
do?
can find out loads on our website. It's very simple. It's greenchristian.org.uk.
Nice, easy website. I love easy
so
websites.
Just remember that, or Google Green Christian, and I think it will pop up fairly easily. Yeah, and there you can find out about all the different things that we do. There's quite a lot of downloadable materials, and there's also online webinars that we run fairly regularly, discussing all sorts of things. Again, from these very practical issues about lifestyle and buildings and other things, all the way through to the theology and the economics and the spirituality of being engaged with care for creation as a Christian.
And do you have and loads of groups.
And local groups.
We're being heckled. We're being heckled.
No, my colleague there is reminding me, that's the prompt, it's not a heckle. Local groups, so you can engage with meeting people
we love a good heckler
locally
Cliff.
as well. Yes,
we love a good heckler.
Yeah.
It's really helpful. Hecklers are important.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes,
and local
yes,
groups.
yes.
Do you have resources on there for local churches and things to think about?
Yes, we're not so much focusing directly on a church itself, but I mean the church could, for example, as I've done in my own church, use this course called Plenty with, for example, with a home group,
Okay.
you know, like with a cell group or
Yeah.
whatever, as integrating that into the teaching of the church. Yeah.
Superb. Colin, thank you so much. If there's one thing you would want to say, so we've got folk online, we've got folk in the hub,
Yes.
folk will watch this a little later.
Yes.
The green agenda, it's such a massive agenda, and
Yeah.
sometimes it can feel so overwhelming for us, if I'm honest. And I know I find myself in that place a lot of the time.
Yes.
What do I do? What decisions do I need to make? What changes do I need to make sure I'm being genuinely authentic as a follower of Jesus in
Yes.
what is a difficult time? What would be the one thing or the first place to start for someone who's just beginning to think, I need to make a change?
That's an extraordinarily difficult question if
Oh,
you're going
I
to
know.
limit me to one, because I would actually probably list about 101 things. But the thing is, maybe there's a list of 101 things, and actually if you look on our website, there's lots of suggestions, and you should pick one that works for you in the near future that is real and practical.
So you can see it.
You can see it,
Yeah.
and it's an actual change. And it might, for example, be that, yes, you don't change your diet drastically. You don't suddenly go from being a typical British diet to being vegan, for example. But you don't eat meat except at the weekend.
Yeah,
Something
absolutely.
like that.
That's
It's
really
one
helpful.
step at the beginning of a journey.
And you can see
Yes.
the change that happens.
Exactly,
And, and
yes,
it's
yeah.
doable.
Yeah.
The important thing in all of these steps is it needs to be doable.
Exactly, yes.
We don't want to that's
Yes.
really helpful.
And
Colin,
join with other people
Yeah.
to encourage and challenge each other.
great.
Yeah.
Just a reminder about that website, greenchristian.org.uk. Do take a visit to the Green Christian website, find out more and get involved. Thank you. We're going to, in a second, just stay there 1 second, Colin, don't move. We're going to just go into a pre-recorded video for a conversation I had just a little while ago with Hannah from JPIT. So this is another conversation about how you can get involved and make a difference.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ash. Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm here with Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Are you all right?
Hi, Ashley. I'm doing very well, thank
Are
you.
you enjoying being at festival?
Yeah, it's a gorgeously sunny weekend,
It's
so
great,
definitely
isn't
enjoying
it?
that.
It's
It's great to see everyone.
superb. I'm having just an amazing time. Interestingly, somebody even brought me an ice cream while I was doing kind of filming earlier on. That was amazing.
I've spotted the ice cream van. I might
I
be
know.
taking a trip there later.
Ice cream's always good at festival. It's not a festival till you've had an ice cream.
Absolutely
So
not.
anyway, Hannah, welcome to Cliff. You work for JPIT, the Joint Public Issues Team, which is an organisation kind of shared between the Baptist Union of Great Britain, the Methodist Church and the United Reformed Church. I did have a chat with one of your colleagues on Festival Live, Paul. But again, just remind us what JPIT is, what it stands for, what it's about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really here to help our churches engage with issues of peace and justice. So we're thinking about social justice in the world. How do we bring about a world that looks more like God's kingdom? Particularly thinking about our political structures, our social structures, and how we can be speaking truth to power is often the phrase that we hear, the truth that the gospel speaks of what a world transformed in God's love looks like, and how we can be speaking that into the world today.
And I'm really proud of JPIT as part of the Methodist Church. It's one of those kind of organisations that was really making a difference, speaking out, offering the prophetic voice that on our own sometimes as individual Christians we can't make. But together we have a powerful voice as Christians, both to the power bases in our local areas and government. Your particular role is campaigning, I think you said to me.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about what you do day to day. What's a 9 to 5 look like for Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you've just been describing, helping people think about, if I'm just one person or we're just one church, how can we be part of something bigger that is a movement for change around some of these issues that we really care about? So, for example, if in your community, perhaps you're really hearing that one of the issues in front of your community at the moment is the cost of living crisis, people are struggling with income, and you're doing as much as you can in the local area to think about how can we meet those needs, but you've still got questions about why people are struggling in the first place, we really want to help people get connected up with the bigger picture story about why some of these injustices might arise and how they can be part of change and how they can engage with political opportunities, social opportunities to raise a voice that's actually, we believe, in something different here.
That's great. And then it's really exciting, isn't it, to be able to say, I'm part of that.
Absolutely.
As a follower of Jesus, in my little community, I'm part of something bigger. My voice is being heard and we're represented in some of those key places.
Yeah, and we can feel so isolated from the decision-making places in our country, can't we? We can feel like, if your community is really far away from Westminster, for example, you might feel like that's somewhere that doesn't have anything to do with you. Yeah. But actually, we really want to be thinking about how can we be influencing change in all the spheres in our lives, in our immediate sense, in our communities, but also at that national level as well. And even if our work is just helping people understand how all the cogs turn, how everything fits together, and how they can be part of that structure, I think that's a really useful thing to do to empower us to take action for change.
So, campaigning. What are the things that are on your agenda at the moment? What are the things you're kind of trying to challenge and be involved in?
Yeah, so we're a couple of weeks away from Refugee Week, which happens in June each year, from the 19th of June. And one of the things we're really particularly thinking about this year is a new piece of legislation called the Illegal Migration Bill that's been brought through by the government, which is proposing some new legislation around people who seek asylum in the UK, people who've crossed borders in order to find a safe home somewhere else because they're fleeing war, persecution, conflict. And we're really encouraging people in communities to take action to show hospitality to refugees. This new legislation is quite hostile. It's creating more barriers as to how people might be able to seek safety here in the UK and really restricting who and how people can claim asylum here. So we're really encouraging people to show hospitality, not hostility, to say actually in our communities we are welcoming. We recognise the dignity of these people because they're made in the image of God. And we want to show that, particularly in Refugee Week, by gathering around a table with them. We want to put on a community meal. We want to put on a tea, a coffee morning that brings people together, that gets relationships going, that gets conversation going, that shows hospitality in the face of hostility.
So how, in my local church, how do I find out about the resources for that or the information about that? Where do I go to?
Yeah, absolutely. So as JPIT, we have a combined resource. We particularly put our resources out through our website, so that jpit.uk, that's jpit.uk.
That's a really easy website.
Really easy website, yeah, absolutely. And you can go on there and find out about all of these campaigns. We've got our most current campaigns on the homepage, or you can dig in a little bit more to the issues that maybe you particularly care about. Is that poverty, refugees, the environment, politics? Go on there and find out a whole menu of things that you can get involved with.
Now, over the next, sometime in the next 18 months, we're going to have a general election.
Absolutely.
People say church and politics shouldn't mix. They're the two things you don't talk about at the dinner table, faith and politics. Actually, they're the two most important things
makes my dinner table very complicated. Yeah.
The two most important things we should talk about as Christians at the dinner table. So we're going to have a general election. That's a given. There's no doubt about that. Do we as a church get involved in that? Does JPIT get involved in that? Do we speak into that at any point? How do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really believe that being part of politics is part of our discipleship. It's if we are called as Christians to work with God to bring about the kingdom come on earth, then our political structures are as important as all the other structures in our communities, in our lives, to make that happen. Elections are just one part of how that happens in the whole cycle of our political life, but they are a really important one. They're an opportunity where everyone is thinking about, everyone is focused on political structures. So we really encourage people, one of the phrases we've used before is think, pray, vote. So we ask people to think carefully about the issues that matter to them, what's going on in their communities, what they believe a just world looks like. To pray, to talk with God about what's on their hearts, what God is calling them to be prophetic with, to be witness to in that space, and to carry all of that with them when they vote. So we're really careful that we are not party political. Yeah. We are not, as churches, looking to persuade people to vote a certain way. What we're asking people to do is engage deeply with their faith values and with the issues they see in their communities around them, and to engage thoughtfully as they step into that space around an election.
So will you offer resources around the election when it comes?
We certainly will. yeah, you can have a little look on that JPIT website. Keep an eye out on that. Our newsletter is the best place to find out those updates when they come. We'll provide resources around the issues that are particularly prominent at the election, and perhaps some theological questions about how we might start engaging with those, and also resources about how people might hold hustings to invite their candidates in their area to come to their church, perhaps host in their church, to be asked by the local community what they stand for.
So the questions are really important, aren't they? Mm-hmm. The questions that are on our hearts and on our minds as Christians. And we need to be challenging those who are standing for power to answer those questions.
Absolutely.
How are you going to make a just society? Really important.
And sometimes it's that questioning, not the answers, that's the most important thing, isn't it? To go in with a questioning mindset, to really dig deeper and to open up the conversation to include more people than perhaps haven't been included before.
Hannah, thank you so much for taking some time to have a conversation with us.
Thank you.
Just let's remember that website again. It's jpit.uk.
Certainly
Really simple. Take a look. The resources there will help you to have a voice and to get involved in the campaigns that on behalf of the Methodist Church and others JPIT's engaged with. So Hannah, thank you so much for spending time. We'll see you again soon. Well, thank you, Hannah, for taking some time with me a little early to have a conversation. Thank you, everyone online, for joining us, whether you've been on Facebook or on YouTube. This has been Happy Hour with Ash. I don't know how happy it was. We've talked about some really serious issues this afternoon, political issues, justice issues, eco issues, issues that affect all of us around the globe. And as we've said a number of times, Eden is not restored until the whole of creation is restored, and we have a part to play with that. So thank you to the President and the Vice President of the conference. Thank you to All We Can and Tim. Thank you to Colin from Green Christian, and Mandy, the Wilderness Encounters, and Hannah from JPIT. Lots of organisations who are seeking to make a difference. But you, in your place, where you are, how are you going to respond to all of that? What difference are you going to make? What change? Been some great bits of conversation on Facebook about the things we can do. People who don't eat meat at certain days, and decisions about how they're going to live and make decisions each day that have an impact. So what decisions are you going to make? As a challenge from this festival, what are you going to do and move forward with? As Colin said, don't make it too big, just make it something that's achievable for you. But let's all leave festival this weekend and make one change as a result of being here. If we do that, that's hundreds of people making a change. That will have an impact, and it will head towards Eden being restored. So thank you for joining us for this hour. Join us tonight for Celebration at 7 p.m. And then Festival Live will be immediately following Celebration tonight. And then, of course, we're back tomorrow for Bible study, and we're back for Happy Hour again tomorrow afternoon with lots of guests on site as well. So do join us tomorrow and tonight. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy Festival. Even though you're not on site, enjoy Festival where you find yourself. Enjoy your day.